Hello, career thought leaders. It's good to see you today. And we are going to be talking about the findings of our Career Jam 2025 conversation. So, we got 7 experts from across the globe together to talk about the future of careers and what that means for career practitioners. And we're going to go through it and talk about what really matters for you, the insights that we gained from some of these folks, and spoiler alert, you're going to get the last opportunity to get the recordings of this event, to get lifetime access to the recordings, as well as transcripts and some of the tools that we made while we were having these conversations. So I'll give you a little bit more on that later in case you're interested. But for right now, let's dive in to the findings of this event. So we've done this every year for 15 years, going in and talking with other career services providers, thought leaders, experts in the field, as well as in the last few years, people from across the globe, to give us the skinny on what is going on in the workforce, in the economy, in anything that we can see that's relevant to our work. And of course, this year we had our 6 themes. We're going to go through those 6 themes and the 5 themes, 5 themes, and the insights that we got from the speakers related to each theme. So we had this conversation about what's going on right now in the market, and the conversation of AI in hiring, AI in candidate marketing creation, job search applications, and the challenges that that's causing in the market. So we've got more applications for every open position than ever before, and yet some industries are really struggling to get applicants. But this part of it is less about that mismatch and more about the applicant and HR mismatch, the expectations and kind of the rules that apply and how those we're struggling to figure out. Okay, so if HR are going to use these tools, but they don't want candidates using the tools. And I will say that that's not really what's going on. And that was part of the conversation that we had, both with Alexandra Levitt, who's a futurist, as well as with Martin Redstone, who is a AI in HR guru. The name of his company is HAIR, right? AI in HR. And he is clever and he's very on top of things. And he shared some information with us that was really important in this section, just looking at this double standard. So the new data came out, 99% of hiring managers are using AI in their process, but 54% view it negatively if a candidate does. However, that is really specific to if they can tell it's used in a way that makes them question the candidate's credibility. And it doesn't mean we can't use it. In fact, research just came out. I saw a colleague sharing this research that people who use AI are more likely to get through than people who don't. And this research, I'll have to go and understand it better, because they said more qualified people were less likely to get through than less qualified people who used AI. How did they determine qualification? How did they do that research? I want to know. I want to dig in. But what I'll say is that I don't think the answer is to tell our clients not to use AI. The answer is to help our clients use it well. Do the research, do the targeting, do the analysis, make sure they're hitting the points, but then tell their stories, be specific, be credible, because then you get the best of both worlds. So the point or the outcome I get from that study is we should be helping our qualified candidates use AI in a way that adds value, so they're not losing out to less qualified candidates who have used the tools. That's on us, right? That's on our candidates to do the use of the tools in a way that is additive. And we're going to come back to that point here in another section as well. So hold on to that. So here's another challenge, is that 33% of candidates are abandoning applications if it requires a one-way interview. And we talked about this with Martin, and we've heard about this from other recruiters. This is the way of the future. There are more AI assessments being done today, and these AI assessments can look like a one-way interview when in reality, they're really not. They're an assessment, just like, maybe before you'd have to write answers to specific questions or something. Now, instead of doing that, they're doing these interviews because it's less, it's easier to tell if someone's faking it, if they're using a system to fake it, than if we're using writing samples. And, you could argue bad things with either one. They're not, just to look at that and say, oh, the company's pushing me to a one-way interview that's so impersonal, and to see it as this big negative only hurts our client, because more and more companies are going to be doing that. And by removing themselves from the process, because that is a part of the process, they're only hurting themselves, and they're going to be seeing it more and more and more. You might have seen that Zoom purchased BrightHire. BrightHire, we've been watching for, I don't know, since they launched. It's an interview company that was doing competency-based interviews and helping HR people using AI to do more competency-based interviews instead of other types of questions that can bring in more bias. So Zoom purchased them just this past week. This is huge. What it tells us is that this interview technology is coming in hot, right? This is not going anywhere. And if our clients are putting things away, they're saying no to a job because that's part of the process, they're going to find more and more opportunities they're turning down for what I think is a silly reason to judge a company because they're doing this. They're just trying to get more information about the applicants so that they can determine, is somebody really qualified or not? Is it just because they used AI to write their materials or not? And so we're over here saying that companies are bad because they're getting less qualified people who've used AI. And then we're also saying they're bad because they're trying to use these new technologies that get past that. We got to give them a break somewhere. They're trying. Doing the old school one-to-one, that has bias issues too. I've heard a lot of people say that, like, oh, they'll just go back to in-person and networking and referrals. That's good, and we want to think about that for our job seekers, but it also has issues with bias and discrimination. So to level the playing field, they're just doing whatever they can. And we've got to help our candidates understand what's going on and do their best to just navigate the process with interviews, with referrals, with all the things, to get past that and figure out if the opportunity is really a good fit, and not to see, oh, opportunity is not a good fit because they're using an assessment or they're using a one-way interview. So I think we're going to see those things continue to rise. And with the job market numbers that I just shared in my LinkedIn newsletter article today, it's going to get tight. It's going to get tighter, and turning things down because of these reasons is not going to be advisable for candidates. Obviously we don't want them somewhere that's not a good fit. We don't want them somewhere that doesn't value them, but they're reading signals that aren't really signals from companies. They're reading into it as a signal of that when it's not really. So drop me a note, drop in the comments, and let us know if you're seeing this from candidates, if people are turning down interviews because of a one-way interview early in the process, and what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear from you. So that's our first trend, this disconnect in AI in hiring, AI in job search, and really how we can help our candidates navigate that in a way that still holds integrity for them, but doesn't get them out of the running for silly reasons. Okay. And getting to the human connection, which Alexandra talked about. She's got a new book coming out soon. She's got an older book, 2020 book on the human technology connection, and that's kind of her game. That's lovely. So pay attention to that and how she's talking about that and the human connection, which of course we're all teaching our clients as well. All right, so beyond the gap of use AI, don't use AI in hiring, in job search, we've also got the skills gap. And I thought this was interesting. It's kind of, just saw all the layoffs. Again, I just posted that in my LinkedIn newsletter today, but you also have like Ford saying they 5,000 technicians short. You have big shortages in some areas as well. And I saw a very insightful comment on a post where someone was talking about the apprenticeships and the, hands-on jobs and the lack of training programs. So you could say, oh, there's all this opportunity there. But the challenge is, and I didn't know this, that there is a waiting list to get into some apprenticeship programs, hands-on. Kind of reminds me of the nursing shortage a few years ago, where there was a huge nursing shortage, but it was also like a 2-year wait to get into nursing school because they didn't have the capacity to train what they needed in the workforce. And I'm reading that that's happening in the blue collar type of work as well, that we may say, oh, push all of our young people or even some retraining job seekers into those fields, but they may find that they have a huge long wait to get into an apprenticeship. And I haven't dug deeper what countries, what specific apprenticeships, et cetera, that was referring to, but it's an important thing to realize. And again, we've seen it before with the nursing shortage. And so how do you help people navigate that? How do we help companies navigate that? And I know our universities and community colleges, so that we can spool people up to be able to do those jobs that may be in need, but don't have enough trained people to do them. So you've got youth unemployment rate raised up. You've got a lot of people in long-term unemployment. The numbers and the length of that is growing. But then you also have these organizations, especially in healthcare, manufacturing, that are struggling to fill roles. So as we were talking about those areas, we start to see what's on the horizon. And I love these conversations. People loved this presentation from Nakaska, who, by the way, will be speaking at our symposium in San Diego in 2026. But she shared some of the new types of companies and technologies that are coming online that will add jobs. Now, the thing to know about this, and Anne doesn't talk about specific jobs that will be created, because that's not really the way that it works. So if you take a bioscience engineer and you say, okay, now we're releasing these 3D bioprinting companies, the new technology gets approved and we can 3D bioprint organs for transplant. That doesn't necessarily mean that someone doing that type of engineering is going to take the job of a former bioengineer, or that bioengineer has to go back and start over with schooling, right? It's an evolution. It's not a total new job. So we have to help our clients be ready for and be paying attention enough to evolve with the jobs. And as these companies come online, they're going to need everybody else: HR, finance, marketing, sales. They're going to need everybody else to sell these new technologies. The challenge that we've been talking about for a while is that we're kind of at this inflection point where we've lost some jobs because of AI, but some of the new technologies coming up, which are not all AI, she calls them fourth industrial revolution technologies. AI kind of gets the headliner there, but it's not the whole story. That those technologies are going to create jobs. It's just not there yet. And looking at what's coming in construction, in manufacturing, in healthcare, that there are all these new technologies on the cusp, right? And how can we position people to be ready to do those jobs, to have those new skills that they'll need to do those jobs, realizing that it doesn't mean that everybody needs to go back and get a totally new, right, change careers, but it does mean they've got to be ready to do these new types of jobs. So what types of new jobs are you seeing out there, and how can you help your clients look at that? And keeping an open mind. And so Anne tells a story of one of our colleagues who said, well, I work in this rural area, so that's not going to impact me or my students. Boy, we got to open up our horizon, because when you look at some of our other trends, it doesn't matter where you live or where you work or the types of companies that are even in your geographic location. Those opportunities are going to be available to anyone who has the skills and the interest to make the connection. So how do we help them get that forward-looking mentality and see how that change is going to impact their career? Because it's not a skill that most of our clients and maybe even some of us are used to engaging in our work. And we're going to talk more about that on Friday when we look at how to predict the skills that are going to be needed in the future. We're going to go through how you can use some AI tools to help you and your clients do that. But let's go on to the next one. So the end of the one job mindset, and this is huge right now. 47% of workers in the US are now polyworking, which means that they're doing more than one job. Some people are job stacking, which means that they're doing more than one full-time job at the same time. There's not a ton of people, but there are people doing it. In fact, I've had someone pitching to come on my radio show and talk about it. But polyworking is like, so I might have a full-time job and then a part-time job or an evening gig or a freelancing thing. 47% of workers are doing that. And millennials are already having 4 or more income streams. Petra Zink gave this presentation. She is again going to be at the symposium in 2026 in San Diego. Join us on the beach, get some forward thinking in so that you can do what you're telling your clients to do. I'll drop the link for that here in a second. But this is huge for a lot of us that don't have tools or maybe comfort in helping people think about how they're putting multiple jobs together, or like, and then this is big on our over 50 crowd, how to be fractional and manage that in a way that adds value for them instead of being seen as a downside. And for our young people too, who are more, they're seeking this out. How do you put those things together so that it makes sense, so it can still be, lucrative and give you a living wage? They need to know how to negotiate. They need to know how to build authority, which is what Petra teaches. And this was one of my funnest parts of the symposium, because while Petra was teaching and training, I went on and created a 10-step process that you could walk clients through to think about being more independent. And that's included with the recordings of Career Jam. So if you're interested in that, I kind of think all in and of itself, it's worth the price of admission for Career Jam. You get all the recordings, you get all of these worksheets, some young people skills worksheets that I created, as well as this 10-step for being an independent worker. So that trend is huge. And if you don't have coaching skills to help people do that, if you don't have tools to help them do that, that'd be an area for growth for us for this next 6 months. Then we get into the idea of needing AI skills. And this was a post that we made on our LinkedIn page, Career Thought Leaders LinkedIn page, and someone commented, not all jobs will use AI. And the data was from PwC that said 100% of industries were adopting AI, which I understand is not 100% of jobs. But then, like yesterday, this other survey came out that said 88% of jobs are incorporating AI. And you think about, like, how could that be true? My sister's a physical therapy assistant. She said, well, AI is not taking my job. And she's right. There are the hands-on aspects of her job that AI can't do. But I'm guessing within the next year, her system that she uses to develop treatment plans for people will include AI in it, where you put in the person's stuff and it spits out that treatment plan. And she'll argue with it because she and I are very similar creatures, right? She'll want to put her stamp on it, but it will be AI powered instead of just pulling from a textbook and copying the old exercises she's copied for people for the last whatever, how many years. Now the system will create a personalized treatment plan with using AI tools. It's coming for everyone, just like technology came for everyone. And when I think about, I used to work at a retraining center, and we had people coming in from blue collar jobs that were getting maybe older, or maybe they'd gotten hurt or just wanted to get out of manual labor. And so they were coming to the retraining center. And the number one reason they were coming there was that they needed computer skills to do pretty much any kind of job at that point, even delivery drivers, municipal workers, all of them using new tech tools. And this was almost 10 years ago, all of them using new tech tools to do their jobs. And they knew that they couldn't get those jobs if they didn't know how to use a computer. Now It's just a different type of technology, and it really isn't that hard to learn. And for many people, it may not be that different than just using any other computer program, but they will need to know. And here's the thing: they need to know when it's wrong. They need to know when to question it. They need to know when to address that problem. And those are the skills that we need to be helping our clients communicate. And it's kind of a leg up for our older clients because they've been in the job. They know what right looks like and what wrong looks like, right? And so if they are communicating that they can be the master of the AI tools, they'll win. And we're seeing this. Our colleagues are talking about this in our networking groups. And Martin Redstone shared his Prime framework of how we can help clients do that. So, purpose: do they understand why they're using the tool? Role: do they understand the AI's role in the whatever they're doing? Can they give the instructions and the steps? That's the I. Do they have a model or an example of how to get it done? And then E, can they evaluate the outcomes, know if they're good or not, and then refine the process? And so if our clients are demonstrating that in their, not just in their resume, there's a great post by Lauren Grafe, one of our other colleagues, about how employers are looking and new tools, upgraded tools, because they've been around for a while, the tools that can go out and source people and put together a profile based on their online presence. Now these tools are not just looking for skill sets and titles and keywords. They're also looking for these indicators of AI skills, of technology skills, of engagement on these platforms in conversations that show you have the wisdom to be able to direct these tools, which is just like the new age, right? So if we're doing digital branding now, it's not just about your profile and your keywords to get found. It's about these signals that you're sending to employers that you're engaged in the industry, that you're knowledgeable, and that you're using these new technologies in a way that adds value. That brings us to our last one, which is the global mobile workforce. So remember above, I said, it doesn't matter where you live, these opportunities will be available. I know that right now we are having a contraction in remote work. That is a symptom of our economy. It's a symptom of policy that's going on kind of worldwide, but it is not sustainable long-term when you look at the demographic shifts happening in the workforce. The UK, England, kind of as a continent, Japan, China, to some degree, as well as the whole North American continent, is experiencing a decline in working population. And so we will have workers from all over the globe working with us because the youth are in other places in the world. They're in South America, they're in the Philippines, they're in the specific countries in Africa, but as a continent. And so we're going to see a shift of labor across geographies, and it's not going to be outsourcing anymore. It's going to be just a global workforce that we are all engaged in. And I think we're already starting to see some of the low-cost countries not become low-cost anymore because we're just seeing that leveling of what's going on globally as we move to a global workforce. And so are your people remote capable? Do they know how to lead? Do they know how to manage their own time if they are doing hybrid or remote? Right now, they can get in probably faster if they are willing to go to an office, and they can kind of know that this too will shift because it's just not sustainable demographically for US companies to continue to want people to live in the US with the new legislation on HB1 visas and just with the demographic shifts. Do leaders know how to lead distributed teams across the globe and how are they doing that? And I will just take one takeaway from Candy Ho, who came from CIRIC, to share some of their career development in 2040. And one of the ideas that just really resonated was this idea of your career as a constellation of all the experiences in your life, because it's not just about the jobs you've done, it's about the experiences that you've had inside work, outside of work, that make you have the skills that you do, make you the person who you are, right? Build that brand of who you are. And how do we connect that to what the world needs today and what the world will need in the future? And of course, on Friday, we're going to be diving in more to the specific how do you use AI to help understand what skills are in need now and what skills will be in need in the future. And that is what we're talking about, right? How you help people forecast the skills. And there's actually ways to do it because they've done a lot of research that we can use in AI to do it. All right, a vet using AI in her job. Yes, I love that. Veterinarian, not soldier. Yes, thank you. Since it was Veterans Day last week, I don't know what day it is, but so just last call here that if you'd like to join us for in the community, in the recordings of Career Jam, you can do that today and see what everyone else got out of it. It was one of the best ones ever. They're always amazing, but we got so much good feedback. The other thing that I'll say is that tomorrow, nothing like the present moment. Tomorrow, the 6 payment plan will end for our symposium in California. And if you are on our mailing list, you'll see tomorrow some announcements of speakers. If you're not on our mailing list and you're interested to see the speakers, drop your name or send me a message or something, and we will send you the speaker announcements. Like I said, Petra, I put the 17th, but then we bumped it to the 19th. So you'll still have the 6 payment plan until the 19th. As I said, we'll have Petra Zink presenting on how do we help people with these remote contract roles. We will have Susan Britton talking about the neuroscience and coaching. Always excited to see her. It's been a while. We will also have Anthony Musso talking about using AI in the Career Services University Community College arena. We will have Ann Nakaska talking about the jobs of the future, and many others who hopefully will start to sign their contracts today so that I can announce them tomorrow morning. But this is our schedule starting on Sunday the 19th. I know it seems like a long ways away. It is 5 months away. But if you sign up before tomorrow, you can take advantage of that 6 payment plan, spread it out, and be ready to go when you get there. And I'm just so excited. My board, we finalized the proposals yesterday, and yeah, join us. It's always a lot of not just fun, but opportunity to really stop and engage in our professional development. So I hope you'll join us there. careerthoughtleaders.com/symposium. And if you have any questions about Career Jam or the symposium, let me know. Otherwise, I hope to see you on Friday as we dive into how we can use AI to forecast what skills will still be relevant in the next few years. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and I will see you on Friday. Thanks, everyone. Can't wait, Victoria.